Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you so much for attending this webinar today. I think this is one of the most important parts of the entire series that now this video includes. This webinar, as we launch into it, as we divulge the content of it, it is going to conclude a series of videos that I did around alignment, clarity, and the advantage, giving yourself the greatest possible advantage to stay in business long term. And so I'm so excited to wrap this up today, because if you go through the series, answering the 6 questions, effectively implementing them in your organization, it will create freedom for you. It will create the ability to winter the storms. It will create for you the matrix that you need to be able to make decisions when going through hardships. And if there's one thing that I have learned in my about 20 years of doing some kind of executive role or leadership role in an organization, is that I guarantee you, no matter how solid your company is, you are going to become acquainted with heartache, conflict, and great suffering and challenges as you work through building your business. And if you have this alignment from beginning to end, that solidarity for you, yourself, and all of your team, and you are in perfect alignment across the board with why it matters to be in business, what you're doing, and how you're supposed to be operating through and through, each and every day, pre-making decisions, having decisions made on your behalf, giving your team members the exact framework that they can take and make decisions when you're not there, so that they can help you make money when you are not there, so that you can sleep peacefully at night. This is what does it. And when you have this in place, and when it's actually working, and all of the cogs are connecting and clicking, and you're building this system of your business, it's a beautiful and one of the most meaningful things that I think any entrepreneur can experience. And so it not only gives you that thing, but it gives all of your team that same level of comfort and inspiration and strength. And so what we're working to do, and what I'm working to share, is to kind of uncover the secrets that cause organizations to prosper. So many people say, give me the secret, like how can I understand how to make sure my company is legitimate, and how can I understand how to make sure that we prosper over time, and how can I understand how to create a company that's not going to be wiped out by the next innovation wave. And this series works through that, because whether or not you realize it, and a lot of people haven't been in business for that long period of time to understand that innovation is a constant in the world, in every product, in every period of history. There are constant innovations happening in multiple sectors, sometimes all the sectors, it seems like, at the same time. Some have less, some have more, but in any case, there is innovation and changes and technological advances that are drastically changing the way we do business. And by the way, guys, I see this curtain back here moving a little bit. It's because I have the window open and it's kind of moving. If it bothers us too much, I'm going to walk over there and close it. Okay, so if we're good, we're good. All right, so we're going to continue on here. So all right, so the point is, the market changes, innovation changes. If you look at the S&P 500, just right now, just type it into your computer, S&P 500, and then check out how it goes. Like, it goes up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. But overall, it goes up and to the right. Like, overall, for the past 30, 40 years, if you look at the scale, it's up and to the right, right? But it goes up and down like this all along the way. And that means that's just a representation of the top 500 organizations in America today. And that their up and down trajectory along the way. In your business and mine, we think we're immune to that. We only want a smooth up and to the right trajectory. But in reality, it is not that way. It is anything but that. And that's what this webinar series has been about. And that's why I'm very passionate about this. I've been in business for that 20-year period of time, and I've seen so many ups and downs along the way. I've seen so many businesses crash and burn simply because they violated some of the principles that we've talked through in these sessions, and that I just like help uncover and like say like, look, this is a thing you need to do. Now go do this, implement it for your business. Now, this is the next thing you need to do. Now go implement that for your business. Okay, now here we are in this one. What is most important right freaking now? Okay, now how are we going to gain that piece of clarity and put it in our organization and then create a discipline where that happens continuously? And these are so vital that they will create or limit the survivability of your business. And so I'm so excited to share these with you today. And I hope it's very meaningful as well as very clarifying, because there's something that I like to get boots on the ground. Like, take the cookies off of the top shelf and put them on the bottom shelf so that they're accessible. So many concepts, so many business gurus out there talk about so many principles and ways of doing things. And even some of the people that I listen to, like, okay, yeah, but how do you freaking implement that? Okay, how does it work? I need a little bit more clarity around that. I need somebody to put those cookies on the bottom shelf. And that's what this video is about. That's about taking the cookies from the top shelf where you can't reach them and can't fully understand everything, put them on the bottom shelf so everybody can get out there and get after it and utilize it. Now, a lot of the content that I'm going to be talking about comes from this book right here. It's called The Advantage, and it's Patrick Lencioni's book. It's got some markings on my cover because I've referenced this book a ton. So if you don't have this book, you should probably go get this book. But probably better if you've been in business for a while before you start taking a look at that book, because there's a lot, all the concepts in there are very applicable to an already running company that really needs to gain this alignment and clarity on a little bit higher level. So I'm taking a lot of the content from that book, and I'm mixing that with some of my own and some other gurus out there, and I'm just delivering it to you in a format that you can just take it and it's on the bottom shelf, use it, and implement it right now today. So the question, what is most important right now for every organization, is so important. Like, seems like wait a minute, isn't that? Yeah, it's so important because it's important. What is most important right now? It's so important that we create a discipline of making this a constant reality for our organization. Because what is most important changes. All right. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you have any questions that you would just like me to answer, maybe they're not even fully related to this content. Maybe they're related to some of the past webinars that I've done. If you have any such questions, please put them in the comments and I will try to fit them in as I work through the content today. Okay? Put them in, and my trusty team member, Karina, she's going to make sure that we're ready to rock, that I get them popped up on my side so that I can see them, and that I can put them into the webinar at a critical moment when it works. So if you have any questions, please go do that right now. If any questions come up along the way, feel free to zap them right into the chat and we will get to them as they come. All right. Is everybody doing good? Does everybody feel good about being here? Does everybody hear me well? Is the video looking good? Are we tracking? Looks like it. Looks like it. All right. Great. Thank you, guys. Okay, so let's move forward. All right. The problem in business, especially in that 1 to 5 year range of business, everything is important. Everything is on fire, and everything needs all my attention. I cannot segregate any section of my company. It's a mess. I am in pain, and things are frustrating. People are working hard, but not on the stuff that matters. There are arguments about what is supposed to happen, what is the most important thing right now for all of us, and the results that we're getting are frustrating. We don't have the results that we're after. We're in this kind of this super energetic, hyper energetic mode where everybody's doing something. Please, somebody go shoot something and drag it in because we got to eat tonight. kind of attitude, or paydays every Friday, so we better get some business in the door because something needs to happen and somebody needs to get paychecks ready and processed by Friday. And right now it looks like Tuesday, and we're going a little lean. So how everything seems important. We got to do everything right now so that we can actually have something to eat with and somehow make it to next week. Is there a way forward that does not include all of this drama and craziness and heat and frustration and all of that very stressful activity, and sometimes the kind of hopeless feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm in business, will it always be this way? I got in business because I has a dream and a vision of some better future, and now all of a sudden I'm in it, we're doing stuff, but this is way worse than I thought. This is so confusing and so frustrating, and I'm not even sure we're working on the most important thing. What are we supposed to be doing? Is this the only way? And does it change? Is there any way to possibly get out of this rat race, this cycle of frustration and heat and drama? And I've got news for you. That's what this video is about, and this whole series is about. Yes, there is a way, and that is exactly why I made this video series for you business owners out there who are feeling the stress. You're feeling the heat, you're feeling the frustration, and you're like, I got to get out of this if I'm going to stay in business. How do I do that? How do I make sure that my company lives beyond this mess that we're currently facing, that I deal with all the situations that are happening in the day, in the moment, and how do I get to, while focusing on the most important thing, how do I get to the next week, the next month, the next year, and continue operating this organization productively and profitably? Listen, to win and stay aligned, to win and stay alive in business, survive, alignment is unequivocally the most important tool. There is nothing in business, and again, guys, I'm not saying I'm the smartest and the wisest, but from every, and I read, I believe readers are leaders. I mean, I've got 3 books on my shelf right now. I've got these 3, I've got all the books, those books on the shelf back there. I've read all of those, and I continue buying new books each and every day. And if there's one common theme that I've heard from all the business geniuses, I mean, some of these guys, you read their books and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got so much freaking stuff to learn. You read them, from everything, alignment and clarity trumps it all. Patrick Lencioni says in The Advantage, creating it is the best chance that we have. By the way, The Advantage book, I'm just going to show you it again. It's such a good book. I don't get paid for advertising this. And I hope Patrick Lencioni sees this one day, because I'm advertising it for him for free. In any case, Patrick Lencioni says The Advantage is creating the best chance we have at surviving and thriving as a business. And I wholeheartedly agree. And all the plethora of other books that I've read, it is exactly true. I found it to be exactly true, both in theory and in practice, and from the multitude of counselors that I have listened to, that have been counseled by, and that I have had the joy of being in the minds of as I've read through their content. So this process, there is a lot of principle to it, but the cookies can be put on the bottom shelves, and we can use, and they can be accessible. And so this webinar series is all about accessibility and helping everyone be able to get into it. Okay. This is an interesting slide. It was not here before. Okay, there we go. All right, I was just looking through this and I'm thinking, wait a minute, these are the questions that were on my some of the questions on my last webinar. Okay, now I got it. Okay, so I put a recap at the beginning. I also put a recap at the end of this to make sure that we had them all in one place. I just didn't realize I put it here as well. All right, let's go through the recap, guys. Why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we do? And how will we succeed? Those are the questions that have been answered to this point. Okay. This webinar is to answer the question, what is the most important right now, and who does what? Now, it seems like those are very simple, very down-to-earth questions, and that's because they are, but they have very big implications and effect throughout the entire organization. So the question for today, the questions we're going over today are what is most important right now and who does what. Now I know it seems very kind of like, oh, well, that's easy to answer. Look, it's not that easy to answer. It's easy to answer for a day, but it's not easy to keep the discipline for long term. And that's what this video is about, just to help you do exactly that. So more clearly than anyone else, again, Patrick Lencioni outlines what it takes to create alignment. Most, if not all, business problems come from a failure to create and work consistently within the confines of these questions. That statement is, when I was working through creating these slides and I wrote that, and I was thinking, where did all, how can I convey to the listener today how important this information is? As simple as it sounds, as simplifying as this video and as this webinar we're trying to make it, how do I convey to the listener how vital this is going to be for them in their business? And I think it all boils down to that statement. Most, if not all, business problems come from a failure to create and work consistently within the confines of the answers to these questions in your business. And the great part is you have the answers to these questions. The challenge is working through diligently the process and then organizing them in a way that you can understand and consistently refer back to them in a way that affects your business and affects all of the decisions that you make as you go about working through owning and operating your business. All right, so my name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations and TVB team. Please like the video, subscribe to our channel, hit the notifications bell. I'm posting content every Wednesday at, man, the time just changed, 8:30, 9:30 Central, 9:30 Central. We're double checking. I post the content. I do a webinar, live webinar, every Wednesday at 8:30 or 9:30, Karina? 8:30. 8:30. Okay, 9:30. Okay, there we go. We're 9:30. All right, I'm sorry. We got to get through. We had to get some logistical information out to us. Very good. Thank you, Karina. 9:30 Eastern time, every Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern, to interface with entrepreneurs, with leaders, and to distribute this information out in the marketplace. I do this number one, to create and continue to build trust around our brand, and number two, to make sure that any entrepreneur out there who wants to grow a business they have access to the information that they need, and they're able to put the boots on the ground and actually work within the confines of alignment for their organization. That's why I do this. And I love small business. I love entrepreneurs, and I think it's the backbone of the American economy. And it's one of the most powerful elements of our nation that's going to make America the greatest nation that can be. But it's all about great leaders doing great stuff in great organizations that stand the test of time. And that's what we're doing in this video, trying to help and make sure as many companies as possible have that advantage and can do just that. All right, so let's get into the content. Sad reality for every organization, most of the time, everything is important, and you're in a state of perpetual lackluster. The results, they're just not what they should be. You're in this condition where everything is always important, and you're not even sure how to eliminate the noise and focus on that one thing, and for how long you should focus on it. Like, what are the parameters? How do I know? How do I get guaranteed certain on everything that we're supposed to be focused on for a period of time and actually make the impact that it's supposed to have on our organization? How do I do that? Because sometimes you work on problems that are challenging. But here's the truth, guys. I know this is a long entry that I put into this slide, but I was there at one point of our business. I was very much there. I was frustrated. I was very confused. We're working hard. We're making sales and we're getting stuff done. But there's a mistake that so many of us make, and that is we make everything important so that we do, and man, it's painful. We make everything so important and stay so busy so that we don't have to deal with the fact that we don't know what is most important. And I want you to hear that. So many entrepreneurs make this mistake because, and I don't think it's a pride thing, and I think maybe the culture has taught us this, that we always have to know the answer, and especially if you're an owner of something or the CEO or the co-founder or founder, you feel like you have to know the answers and you have to bring to the table the solutions all the time. If you don't, you're going to lose credibility, you're going to lose team members, and you're gonna and you're gonna look fake or look unsuccessful maybe in front of your team or your colleagues. I don't know what it might be, but there's a myriad of reasons. But I think the mistake, it's a very big mistake, that you allow everything to become important because you don't you're having a hard time dealing with the fact, and I had the hard time dealing with the fact that I really didn't truly know what was most important and how to differentiate that for our company, for our team, for the period. And I just want to help you with that because I was in that boat. I've been there. I've been in that situation, and it's not fun, and it's very confusing and frustrating. And you go to bed at night, and you're like, my gosh, I did a ton of work today, and we're just working on all these different things, and man, but what should I be working on? Like, what is the most important thing for us? Like, how can I make sure that I'm doing the right thing that causes the most positive outcomes for our entire organization right now? How can I do that? And you have this kind of perpetual frustration. And I've been there. I know the feeling, and I can resonate with that. And that's one of the reasons I'm going through this. But I got through that, and we got past it. And this is many years gone by now. And so, great leadership requires clarity and the sacrifice of less important, even though still important stuff. Now, I'm trying to make this very uncomplicated verbiage here. Great leadership requires this of you. You sacrifice less important, even though important stuff. That's going to be something that I want you to know as we work through the content. So today we're answering the two final questions. And if you're like me, you need a little more guidance to facilitate the answers to those questions. As I work through the content, and I've read many, many books, sometimes I'm reading through and I'm just getting frustrated as I'm reading through this book because it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much freaking information here, and I need to apply this, and how the heck can I do all of this? It's just agitating me because I'm like, we're working in our business, and I see this thing, and oh my gosh, this is my problem. Yes, I know that's my problem too, and I lack that, and oh my gosh. Okay, let's calm down, put on the brakes, focus. It's all right. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get where we need to go. But if you're like me, you need a little bit more clarity and guidance on, okay, what do I need to do to make sure I implement this into my organization? That's why we're doing this video. All right, so how do we do this? Things that you need to know as we enter into the how, okay? Things you need to know is this. Creating what most important right now clarity rallies your troops. Okay, if you don't know what is most important right now, and if you haven't transferred that knowledge to your team, and you don't do that every single period consistently, then you will allow your team to have that lackluster performance. Okay, so that's on you. But the good thing, it's on you. And the good thing is also it's on you to fix, and you can fix it. And that's why you're probably sitting in this webinar today, because you're working to fix that. So awesome on you. Well done. All right. The what's most important, the answer to what's most important right now for your organization is singular. You can't just include every department. It's a singular thing. It's qualitative, not quantitative. Okay. It's an overarching thing. You're looking down in the organization, says, oh, you know what? That's kind of the most broken thing in the organization. We need to fix that if we're going to stay in business right now. Okay. So it's a section. It's not like it's not something like, okay, we need to implement a accounting, marketing, and a video editing specialist to, over the next 2 weeks. This is not like, that's not it. It has to be higher than that, higher level than that. Okay. So it's qualitative, not quantitative. It's comforting because everything seems important and it's temporary. So you will get to everything in due time. But the comforting fact is knowing that I'm working on the most important thing, and I have a process that's going to take me forwards to the other most important things in due season. But right now, this is the most important thing. Okay. It's a collective leadership responsibility. So no one is allowed departmental bias. Whenever we discuss and whenever we determine what the most important thing for our organization is, and sometimes it's just blaringly like at this stage, as we work through like, okay, what is most important right now? So we're just kind of coming to an end on that most important thing right now. So what are we transitioning into? What is the next most important right now thing? And it's like wonk, wonk, just like this huge foghorn in the night, like that's the most important thing. And everybody's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of the most important thing. That's kind of like the big, ugly, hairy beast that's staring us in the face that we've got to deal with. Or that's like the freaking brick wall that we keep slamming into again and again and again. And it feels like we're just banging our heads again against it. But we just finished the other important thing. And now we're like, it can be that obvious. And as you work through this process, it kind of does get that obvious, which is the cool and fun part. Because no one is allowed on a leadership team any kind of departmental bias when you're dealing with the most important thing. It's okay. And sometimes, and I did this in the past, I don't have to do it as much anymore because my team has learned. But when we're talking about this, we're like, I could come to the meeting, was like, okay, my CEO hat is coming off. We're putting it over here. What we have to talk about, what we have to work through is understanding what the most important thing for our organization is right now. And we have to make sure that most of that the activity that's happening, of course, we have to stay in business doing a bunch of other stuff, but the core activity for what we're trying to accomplish is focused on that. In every department, in all your resources in every department are offered up to support the effort that is going into making that become a reality. And nobody gets to sit there on their cell phone and be like, that's kind of like marketing's problem, or that's kind of like sales problem, or that's of course that's finance problem, that's billing's problem, or that's so and so's problem over there in the other section. No, when we are working on the most important thing, every single executive, every single leader looks at that thing and says, okay, what role do I play and where can I provide support about this most important thing? And those department hats are off. You are now no longer a separated departments. You may be department heads, but in this meeting, you are all one and you're looking at this problem for what the most important thing for the organization is, working through it together, how to solve it effectively. And that's one of the beauties of this that really comes out strong, because then you get from that lackluster performance, because all of you are probably individually high performers in your sections and you kind of got your positions because you were high performers. And but when you get all of those high performer executives into a meeting and they take off their department hats and they freaking focus on the most important thing, and you're like, you can move through some of these things so quickly, like lightning speed, that you never thought you could move through them. So the singular and qualitative thing that makes your company better, it becomes solved and your organization grows, and you're like, holy freaking cow, how do we do that? We went through this, that, and we achieved all of those things in such an amount of time. Whereas before we worked 6 and 8 months on this on these 7 things, and we never achieved anything. But now we've worked through all of them in a row, and this is like magic or something. No, it's not magic. It's just alignment, clarity, and a collective response to what is most important right now. So no one is allowed to have departmental bias, and this is just something that you explain to your team and work on helping them understand. And lastly, you must know this. This is your job as the owner, CEO, and leader of your organization. Say what? No, literally, this is your job, to create alignment and clarity for your organization and then consistently refer back to it. This is the job. This is what is required. This is how you win as a leader, as a CEO, and as a organizational executive, by creating clarity and then plowing through those things that are holding your organization back, and plowing it through with the top, with all the resources that your organization has, with such effectiveness, and power and speed that makes winning kind of fun. And so, and then your organization kind of exciting, and you're like, oh my gosh, we got clarity on this, and now we're actually moving forward. This is amazing. So this is your job. So all these things I want you to know as we start to kind of step into this. And the process is not complicated. It's very simple. It's just challenging because you have to do it, and do it all the time. All right. A few more important things regarding timelines. Now, you must create the discipline of monitoring the progress. Okay. Once you create the focus on what is most important for your organization right now, you must create the discipline to monitor the progress over time. So it happens every week, and you meet with your leadership team every single week to discuss this. And I know that sounds a little foreign. You're like, oh my gosh, we have biweekly meetings or monthly meetings to discuss our strategy. I'm here to, so again, as many leadership books and seminars and gurus that I've worked with and listened to, do it weekly. You will vastly increase the effectiveness of your organization by measuring the influence of what is happening in your organization on what is most important right now, if you monitor it weekly. So you must create the discipline of monitoring the progress weekly. All right, you must create the discipline of creating a new what's most important right now upon expiry or completion of the previous one. You can't just go forwards and not come back to these and really dig in listening. You can't go forwards and not come back. You can't start the process and then not continue through. So this is one of the biggest problems that I see leaders make. They start the process of creating clarity. They go through this big rah-rah speech, how we're going to create clarity and alignment. Now this is going to impact the organization. And that's kind of what good leaders are good at. They're kind of charismatic. We get our positions as executives by kind of being charismatic and kind of being able to stir up the crowd and being visionary and all of these things. But one thing that we can fail at very easily, because we're so inspirational, is getting down to earth and saying, all right, the weekly discipline of creating that weekly review and creating the new, what is the most important right now upon completion of the previous one. Maybe just because you're tired, because you're worn out, because you got burned out, because you've been focusing on everything else. It seems like it's daunting and overwhelming, but I promise you, if you start doing this and then you get to the point where you are accomplishing these things, and then you finish one and then you accomplish the next one, it creates energy in your organization and it even inspires you. So nobody likes having to have discipline. Like, I've run for, I think, a little over 20 years at this point. I run 3 times a week, and I don't love running at all. Actually, it's not one of my, I run because it keeps me fit, strong, healthy, and it helps me to be able to extend my life. But I don't just love running. Like, if you ever watch a runner, he's not running around like, I'm so happy that I'm running. This is so much fun. It's not that at all. He's running, but at the end of the day, he looks pretty good and he stays stays healthy for a long time. Well, that's what I want in my life. So that discipline creates that healthy life. And so what you have to do in your organization is the same thing. Create that discipline, that jogging effect, that marathon running effect for you and your organization, so that you stay consistent with the things that drive your company forward over time. And this is one of those things. As you move through them, you'll feel the energy increase, you'll feel the heat turn up, and you will see the progress, and you will be inspired and encouraged. Your team will also, because you're doing your job to help create clarity and lead them forwards. And they're actually seeing, oh, we are making progress, even though this thing is hard and ugly. And remember what I said in a couple slides back about we are working on everything because we don't really know what is most important right now. And we're kind of afraid of that. And we don't really know how to work through that. Well, this is where it kind of gets nitty gritty here, where we create the discipline to assess it every week, review it every week, that's in essence reviewing our processing and our ability to lead well and lead our teams well. It's really about that, because guys, listen, one of the phenomenons in business that I've seen people face with different levels of maturity. You're in business for a while, and you do have kind of an up and to the right season for maybe a period of 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years. It's kind of always going up to the right every single year. And then inevitably, for every single business that I have ever seen, they will go up and then they will have a step back. And they're like, oh, we're gonna die. Oh my gosh, our sales are crushing. We are not gonna make it. We're gonna suffocate. We just had a bad sales year. We made less sales than the years before. Oh my freaking gosh, we're gonna die. And it's like, hold up. Calm down. You're still in business. There's still some sales coming in. You've been through some great years. But the only reason that you think that you're dying right now is because you don't have the broader perspective. Now, look on the market. Look at how many companies. Look at other companies out in the marketplace that have been in business for 20 or 30 years, or 50 years, or 100 years. Do you think that every single one of those 100 years was up and to the right? If you do, you are deeply mistaken. It is not the case. It is not the case for any business. It's not been the case for my business either. Some years we've gone way up, doubled. Like, whoa, here's on fire. This is awesome. And other years we've been very, very calm and very even played, even though I have a really great high performing team. And there's so many things that impact that, from innovation to politics to the taxes to things going on in the country to social challenges, problems, to weather. I mean, everything can affect it. Everything affects your business at some serious point or another. And your job as leader is to have that discipline, to drive back the clarity, and to keep your team in alignment with what really matters so that you can continue successfully winning. All right, so I hope I've driven this home enough. I hope I've created enough clarity around this, but it's very, very important for you as a leader to do this. And I hope that that you take this to heart and you just create the weekly progress to monitor the success. And when you're not having the success that you want, when you're not feeling ultimately very successful about something, don't worry, you're in good company, because that happens to every single one of us. And most of the time, when you're working through challenges and you don't feel as very successful, you are much more successful than you actually feel. And the opposite is true. When you feel like everything's great, everything you touch turns to gold, you're actually probably not quite as good as you think you are. And so I just want to encourage you with that it's not that this helps you to stay even, focused, and moving forward, so that we have as many of those up into the right moments as possible. All right, so the last thing is, expect the answer to the question, what is most important right now, to live 2 to 12 months. So that's going to be your prerogative, your decision to check, like, how long do you think it will take us to be able to get through this next piece of clarity? Like, how long is this going to take? And you just have to assign a period of time that you think, as a collective leadership team, that you think that it's going to take you. And then you just commit that period of time and all the resources in the organization, any extra resources in the organization, to the improvement of that thing for that period of time. So you get the choice, and typically that's 2 to 12 months. Okay. All right. So we start by creating operating sections. Now, these are what you would call your executives' day jobs, or your top leaders' day jobs, the things that they have to do day after day after day, the sections that they have to create success in your organization. This is a key metric for a key area that your leadership team must maintain visibility on in order to stay in business. It's something, a section in your organization. That's why I call it operating sections, because this section has to be in consistent operation for the lifespan of your company. It has to be a reality in order for you to function. So we need to identify them very clearly, and typically this is not that difficult. Some great examples are like team morale, revenue, accounting / stewardship, expenses, product sales, client acquisition and retention, room occupancy if you're like a hotel or something, software and tools if you're a software and engineering company, strength of sales pipeline, that pretty much is universal, quality assurance. All of these items are day jobs of executives. So those executives, they came to the meeting table with the hat on, like they might be HR HR representative, or they might be the CFO, or they might be production COO, or they might be sales, or they might be marketing heads. Whatever they are, you have to identify those in your specific organization, specific to your organization, so that you can clearly understand what sections that you have in your organization that keep you floating. And this is just a very important piece of clarity, but it's not a very long conversation. I mean, this should take you a max of like 30 minutes, and you guys should have the very clear list. You just take your leadership team and say, hey, we need to decide what our operating sections are in our organization. What sections have to be here so that we can continue to exist. And just get that piece of clarity, put it on a piece of paper. It'll become useful later on. Okay, so ask your team the question and work through a conversation around this so that you can do that, and that will help you. Don't just try to sit down and do it all by yourself. It's much better for you to involve 2 or 3, or depending on how big your team is. If you have 100 team members in your organization, maybe it's 10 people in this conversation. Okay, what are the sections in the operating sections in our organization, the things that have to work, and the big kind of overarching systems that have to work in order for us to stay in business. And so you write those down and put them on a piece of paper. Okay, all right, these will help you when you have accomplished a current objective. And you might notice, you're like, in that last list, just scroll back to it for a second. Like, some of those things are kind of the most important thing that we should be working on right now. And that's good. It's supposed to be that way. This is kind of a part of the process to kind of get to the clarity section, okay? You might notice that any of these candidates could be the most important thing. Like, oh my gosh, our team morale has tanked. Why is it tanked? And you get to work on that, right? Or oh my gosh, our product sales have fallen off the rails. Or they're exploding. We're having so much product sales that we can't source all of our inventory fast enough, or whatever. Just one of these things may be one of the biggest broken things in your organization at any given time. And by the way, guys, no matter how far you get, and no matter how good the company I have seen is, there is always a section that requires the most attention. And we'll get to that as we continue forwards. But I just wanted to point out that you create these for your organization. And yes, some of these will be the overarching most important thing for a period of time as you work through working through progressing in the areas of leading your team forwards. So these will undoubtedly become the most important now focus for your business progress. And that's very important. So that's very important for you to understand, because as business progresses, you're like, okay, we fixed everything and now everything is working. No, you didn't. There's always something that needs to have the most focus and most improvement. Now, Dave Ramsey does talk about in the 5th stage, or I think it's the 5th stage of business. I think it's actually 4th. When you have a like super high performing company like he has, he's like, you have to go and intentionally break sections of your company that are actually working fine, but you just need to go throughout the company and break some of the sections so that you actually can fix them and make them operate even at a higher level. And so he talks about it in his new book as well. There's always just get in your mind that there is never a time when your organization is without the need to clarify what is most important right now. There is always one thing, and that helps you rally everyone around that and continue improving. And I think that sometimes we get into this mode that, okay, once I will one day have finished everything in my organization, and it will be the perfect profit producing organization and never need any assistance. And then it's like, yeah, and then somebody will create a piece of technology, or they will create like, for example, the refrigerator, the ice block delivery guy who delivered ice blocks to the people who needed ice in their refrigerators. One day walked up to the door and there was a note that said, we don't need ice blocks anymore. We have electricity and Freon in our refrigerator. Like, what is that? I don't know anything about that. So there will always be disruptors in every market, in every section of every industry. You have to understand that part of it. So you're never, ever done. And I think that's sometimes because so many leaders are hard chargers. They want to get to the finish line. They want to finish the race. They want to be done with the thing. And in reality, in business, it's a marathon. You are running. That's actually one of the reasons that I continue to run, because it also helps frame my mind that, Jason, you're running a marathon, and this is long term. You will never finish. You will never finish until the only time you finish is when you pass the baton on to a capable leader. That's and then you're going off to do whatever else it is that you're capable of and most influential in doing. But I mean, you don't stop. You keep running around the track, and around the track, and then you hand the baton off to somebody else, and they keep running. And that's the only way your business stays current, stays fluid, stays agile, and stays relevant in the marketplace. And so that's why we have to drive back to this question: what is most important now in every season of our business? And sometimes, just example of what I did, just passing the baton off, that might be the most important thing for your team, for your company, for that season. Passing the baton. The most important thing is passing the baton. What does that mean? It involves so many sections and so many different areas of our company to pass the baton off to the next great leader who is going to charge the mountain ahead of you and take this organization up and to the right. So I think everybody kind of clearly needs to understand that section of all of this as we move towards clarity in this area. All right. Now, so how then do we decide what is the most important thing for our company? Like, you've been leading us on through this the whole time, Jason. Come on, tell us the answer already. We're getting to it. We're almost there. The first thing you have to do is to teach your team what you're doing. I almost skipped this slide because I was like, okay, by now people should know. And I was like, okay, no, let me just go ahead and make sure that I put the cookies as low on the bottom shelf as possible and make sure everything is accessible. Okay, so how you do this is you tell your team, your leadership team, what you're doing, and you tell them why it's important. You don't force them, but you lead them with helping them clearly understand, focus, and see why focusing on everything is not getting us where we want to be. You stand up in front of the team and like, look, guys, we've been focusing on everything, and every time you all come to this meeting, you all say, like, this is the progress in that section, and that section, and that section, and that section, and that section. By the end, we're like, okay, well, we had a lot of conversations, but okay, hopefully we're winning. Yay, right? And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we're not. And you walk out of the meeting, you're like, man, I think something's missing. What if we were supposed to focus more on that thing and we didn't? Well, we didn't have any time because it was like an hour and a half went by after we heard the reports from every section. Well, I guess we're okay, right? And the other guy, then tomorrow, then one of your executives comes in and is like, man, I really wish we could have spent more time on this because it's really important. And you're like, oh my gosh, we should have, but now we don't have time. We're going to have to reschedule it for next week or 2 weeks, or worse, if you have monthly leadership meetings. It's like, oh my gosh, how are we going to make progress? And so that's so frustrating. And I know that reality exists for so many of you out there, because I counsel with a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and they deal with this, and they explain to me how that's their reality. That's the reality that they're facing daily. And I'm like, man, that was the reality that I was in like about 10 years ago, but it's not anymore. All right. So do not force, but lead your team clearly by saying, hey, look, guys, we're going through this process of determining what is most important after we've worked through determining what those operating sections for our organization are. And we're going to talk about how to decide consistently that we are focused on the right thing. So you talk about this with your team, and you talk about what you learned in this webinar, how everything cannot be first, because that's kind of an oxymoron. Like, if everything is first and everything is important, doesn't that kind of sound like nothing is important? Okay, so everything can't be important. Something has to be most important. Okay, so how do we get to that? So engage in the dialogue on how having one key accomplishment for your organization for a given period. Remember, it's for a period, and you get to determine that period, even if it involves multiple sections, must be the main focal point of that period. It must be the case. And you get to dialogue and communicate. Start this process by communicating with your leaders about why this matters, why it's important, and what you're endeavoring to do. And now this can be the hard part, really, guys, because if everybody has been doing a thing a certain way, and if they have always been doing this thing like that, then it may be very difficult to communicate to them a change, an implementation. And everybody might have an opinion as to why that won't work or why it's not important. But I promise you guys, if you go through the process of doing this, you will not regret it. You will create energy, unity, and alignment in your organization, and you will accomplish more in shorter periods of time than you would have ever imagined. And more important, you will solve those problems that you've been avoiding that you didn't think you could solve. And that is so valuable. All right, so engage in a dialogue and having one key accomplishment for the period must be the main focal point of any given period. Now, lead to the golden question. When I say lead to the golden question, I mean lead to the golden question. I mean, talk with your leadership team. I mean, energize them, fire them up, and lead them to this question. Ladies and gentlemen, if we accomplished anything over the next 2 to 12 months, and that we could look back on and say with any level of credibility, like this is literally me speaking to my leadership team, I do this consistently, that we had a great period, what would that be? If you look at your leadership team in the eyes and like stand up and hands on the table, like, look guys, if we could look back on this upcoming period and look back on that with pleasure and pride, and literally say we've had, and legitimately, credibly say we've had a great period. What is that thing that in our organization that we should focus on most importantly right now? So I want to have a discussion around that, guys, and I want to drive to the answer so that we have our piece of clarity, our thematic focus for the upcoming period. And we get determined, again, guys, the rules are we determine how long that period is. We determine what the most important thing is. But the key is, guys, once we determine that, every one of you in your departments is required to offer up any resources within your section to make this come to fruition, come to reality, and manifest itself in our company in the way we want it to over the next 2 months, 8 months, 7 months, 3 months, 12 months, whatever it is. Now, the larger your organization is, the longer the thematic focus will be, simply because it's much more there are much more logistics to move in order to move the needle forward. If your company is a $300 million company, there are multiple sections involved. For example, like I talked about handing the baton off, this could be a 12-month, it could be a very long process. First of all, finding a leader, developing a leader, growing a leader from within. I mean, in that case, it even could be a multi-year process. You're like, okay, how do we make this brand transition so that the brand doesn't die when the owner leaves? And so the leaders are going to start looking, they're going to start working and like, okay, so this means that we have to find somebody, build them into the position, and then transfer the baton effectively as they're ready to take that position. This is multiple steps, multiple departments. This is human resources. This is leadership training. This is executive training. This is all types of skills in conversation, skills in vision delivery, aspiration and inspiration capabilities. This is clarity during meetings. This is how you're behaving. This is the requirements of an executive. Like all of these things were going to happen, and there's multiple things involved. And so for each one of the periods of leading up to that transitioning of the baton, that person is, first of all, he's going to be found and selected, or she's going to be found and selected, and then they're going to be trained, and each one. So first it's like finding the person, and that's the most important thing. So we found the person now. Okay, now the next important thing is cultivating what we need in that person, so it's a reality, so that they're what they need to be in order to take over the leadership of this organization. And that might be a 12-month process, literally 12 months of training and investing before that person is ready, because obviously this was a big company that lasted for a long time, and the owner is, maybe transitioning out of that, and he has to make sure that that person will lead this company forwards and upwards. And so this could be the next most important thing, building the credibility of that person throughout the organization and in that person, so that they're able to carry it forwards. And you can see how the bigger the organization is, or the more complex and more departments that are involved in this thematic focus, the more time it might take to actually get that to accomplish that thing. So it could be a 2-month thing. I don't really think it should be less than 2 months. Some people should say it shouldn't be less than 3 months, and it should be long enough so that it's overarching and thematic enough, but not too long to where it's like a 5-year strategy, because then it just kind of like that's going to happen in 5 years. I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 5 years. Some of your team members on the lower level are saying, like, how can I get fired up about that, and how can I focus my time and effort on that if in 5 years, there's going to be a new president, so there might be, who knows, not two new presidents, because presidents are 4 years, but anyways, you get my point. Just a few months ago we had a different president. Now we have a new president. Things have changed drastically. So that's my point, is the thematic focus is the length of time that you focus on that is drastically changes on the organization's size, and depending on how impactful that thematic focus is for the organization. So when you're having this conversation, guys, you probably have to drive back to this question multiple times. If we accomplish anything over the next 2 to 12 months, guys, listen, if we accomplish anything, we're driving back to this question. I know we've got also on some tangents. This is me talking to my leadership team. I know we've got also on some tangents here as we talk through this, but we really need to drive back to this. If we could look back on this period and we could say with any level of credibility that we have had a great period, what is that? What is that focus? Like, what is the number one? What do we all agree is the number one thing that we really need to fix? And then you have a dialogue in your leadership team about this, and you just go over it and over it and over it for the next, 30, 45 minutes if you have to, but you must drive to that one thing. And once everybody gets to that one thing, this is not a coercive process. You don't go into this saying, this is the most important thing, guys. I think this is the most important thing, and we're going to focus on this. That's not the leader's job. In fact, it would be detrimental to your company if you did that. It may come out as the most important thing, but if you have done your job in truly selecting great leaders in your organization, and they can see the operation of your organization, how it's running and how things are going and what things are working and what things are not, then that thing that you think is probably the most broken thing in your organization will probably surface throughout the conversation. Now, if you haven't, that's a discussion for the hiring and firing, and that's a completely different webinar. But if you have done a great job in putting great leaders in place, then you guys will have a really good dialogue around this question, and then you will drive to the answer. And it might not be the leader, the thing that you think it is as the leader. It might be something completely different. You might not have realized how low team morale got for a period, and you were focusing on sales and production, and you didn't realize that morale of the team kind of dropped. Maybe you've been working long hours for a long time, and they haven't seen the progress, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're actually having trouble on this level when we didn't even realize it. And one of your department heads draws that out and says, hey, we need to focus on this. We need to help our team with this, because this entire section that makes up 2/3 of our company, they're having trouble with morale. We need to help. We need to fix that. And you're like, oh my gosh, that is the most important thing right now. That is the thing that impacts our organization most powerfully. Let's deal with that right now. And how many months, how long were we going to deal with it? And now what do? We move to the next section. Oh, sorry. Here's some examples of the answers to the golden question. Remember, it's for a time period. It's qualitative. Remember, so it has to be very high level, and it's not something that you just put numbers on right away. So you have to. So some great examples are increased strength of the sales pipeline, fixed team morale, create alignment for our organization, align leadership team, because believe it or not, leadership teams can be out of alignment. And by the way, if you're out of alignment, go through this video series with your leadership team, and you'll be back in alignment if you put all of the practice in place. Create new leaders in the leader deficit areas of our organization. Maybe it's strengthening partnerships, maybe it's rebranding, or maybe it's create cascading communication that works. Okay, so we have cascade. I know I left out communication, but anyways, create cascading communication that works. Or If you're a hotel, increase room occupancy during a slow season. Like those could all be great examples of an overarching thematic goal for a period. And as you can see, some of these might take 6 months, some of these might take 3 months or 2 months just to find and work through. All right. Once you have this piece of clarity, here's an example. Increase the strength of the sales pipeline. We have to get to a slightly more tactical level with defining objectives. So here's the overarching thing. Guys, we need to increase the sales of the strength pipe guys, we need to increase the strength of the sales pipeline. If we don't do this, we're going to go out of business. My watch is talking to me. If we don't do this, we're going to go out of business. How are we going to no, so since we've decided that strengthening the sales pipeline is our number one, we have to set defining objectives. What is that? Defining objectives is kind of just exactly how it sounds. An objective that defines what areas in our company need to improve in order to, or make some kind of activity in order to move the needle in this section. So defining objectives are also qualitative. See, we're not down to the nitty-gritty yet. They're temporary. They require the activity of leadership in some capacity. So one of the leaders in one of the sections is required to, they can definitely see that, oh my gosh, that kind of falls in my section and I'm going to have to take some action. Okay, they have to be specific and understandable calls to action, and they probably and very likely involve multiple sections in your organization. And that's where I was talking about departmental hats, where you have to take those off, those departmental hats, because now you're in the collective leadership team focused on making the organization better around the most important thing. So it means production and accounting may have to offer up resources in their section or talent to help with strengthening the sales pipeline. How can they do that? Well, you work through the conversation and you'll find out how. And they will, and all of your sections in your organization are resources to help the organization flourish. So you should look at it that way. Not every section is a separate section just kind of trying to flourish on its own. All of it is one collective resource to cause the entire thing to prosper. So they're qualitative, temporary, require the activity of leadership team in some capacity, specific and understandable calls to action in the sections of your organization. Okay, defining objectives. Okay, now what? Now what do we do? Okay, so trying to get the cookies on the bottom shelf. Taking them from up here, put them down here. All right. Create a one-page document showing the thematic focus at the top. One page, thematic focus at the top, strength of the sales pipeline. We have to strengthen the sales pipeline. Okay, under it, the list of defining objectives. Boom, 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 boom. List defining objectives on a single page of clarity that drive movement for the thematic focus, and bring that to the weekly meetings. Now, thematic focus at the top. Here's an example. Defining objectives. So in order to increase the strength of the sales pipeline, what are we going to have to do? We are going to have to hire and train some new team members. We're going, remember, it's qualitative, not super specific at this point. We're going to have to establish brand guide for content creation. We're going to have to establish visualization mechanisms for metrics and results. We're going to have to employ new software and AI tools, and we're going to have to identify sales targets and client avatars. So these are the things we're going to have to do. And once we do these things, it's going to make that thing increase the strength of the sales pipeline, improve. Okay, now what? You take so each of the operating sections has a team leader. And those, remember what we talked about in the section where we talked about the operating sections, each of those has a leader, and that leader is probably in the executive team or closely related to the executive team. And remember what we just talked about the resources in your organization. This is where everyone in the organization identifies where they are in how they're connected to this, how they're connected in the defining objectives area. And they're like, okay, what sections in our organization best connect to hiring and training new team members. Kind of sounds like HR, but it's also going to take marketing, because if we're going to be strengthening the sales pipeline, we have to decide what people we have to find great people that fit the culture of our organization, and then we're going to have to train them, and then we're going to have to help them to do the work in this area. Okay, great. So that sounds like HR. That sounds like something from accounting might be, because we have to talk to people about how much we're going to pay these people. And it also sounds like the marketing people need to be involved in this, because they got to train the people to do the stuff, right? They have to do the stuff to create the result. So that's only in the single section. So three of these operating sections are involved: revenue and accounting, product sales in this case, and client acquisition and retention in this case. So in here we could see, I guess it would be like team morale, product sales, client acquisition, and retention. Those would be the three that would be connected to this. And now you have 3 department heads who are sitting in that meeting, and they're in charge of these operating sections. And that means all the resources that they have available to them that cause this to become a reality start to be reorganized around this thematic focus. Okay, so that's the clarity it gives us. And the bigger the organization, and the more complicated the organization, the more tentacles that go throughout the operating sections to drive towards the most important thing. Now, guys, I did say it was simple to determine what the most important thing is. I did not say it was simple to drive it forwards, because it does trickle down into so many different areas in your organization and require diligence, excellence, and follow-up, that it makes it a daunting task. And that's what kind of makes business a little bit challenging, because the follow-up, because the leadership required to drive something forward like this. And you're like, maybe you're sitting back there like, is that really what is required to own and operate a business? If you want to stay in business long-term, yes, it is. Business is freaking hard. If anybody tells you anything but the fact that business is freaking hard, they're lying to your face. Well, business is easy. This is how I do my business easy. I see those TikToks and I'm like, you're an idiot. And you're probably not going to last the next 6 months, because winning over time is mandatory that you have character, strength, and forward-moving discipline. And to do this, yes, we can answer the golden question, and then connect the golden question to defining objectives, grab the department leads, operating sections, make sure that they invest their resources in the defining objectives. And now, did I have 2 of the same slides? No. And now we move to the next question: who must do what? Which is a very, very logical flow, because now we understand that all of our organization requires the application of the resources in all the sections of our organization. And when you do, the best part about this is you create progress and momentum for everyone. Because business is hard, because it's complicated, because there are so many follow-ups and disciplines required to keep us moving forwards, your ability to drive to clarity consistently and then keep everybody on that course through asking the golden question and then creating your operating sections and tying everybody into the forward-moving boat, it creates that energy that helps you to feel confidence and ultimately achieve the results you're after. And so as you work through getting all your resources offered up and working through the implementations that are required for that defining that overarching thematic focus, sorry, I'm getting mixed up, you will very quickly move to this stage: who must do what? And every leader in that leadership team gets to decide, because now they can see the defining objectives, they can see the operating sections, and they can see where they fall. And so it's very easy for you as a leader to say, so HR, it looks like you guys need to get busy finding this team member for this thing, because this is the most important thing right now. These are the most important team members we need. Let's get on it. And then it's like accounting, you guys need to be ready immediately as soon as we get some eligible candidates in to start setting up their pay and make sure that they've got all of their stuff on their table ready for them to work. And then it's the training guys, as soon as those people get in the door and they've gone through onboarding, making sure that you guys get in there and train these people like you're on fire, because we're trying to get this objective done of strengthening our sales type pipeline. Each leader looks at the defining objectives, discusses and ascertains where they fit in, possibly in multiple sections, by the way. Ensure every defining objective has a leader. Nobody gets to leave the meeting until every defining objective on that list has a leader, and the leader takes the responsibility to his or her team, and they report to the leadership team on a weekly basis on their progress in alignment with the set timelines for that overarching objective. And you're like, now what? You establish your company's operating plan with the answers to all 6 questions. Now, I feel like I blew past that kind of quickly, and I know you've been watching this video for a really long time, so I want to make sure that I address this well enough. I think I did, but if I haven't, I want to make sure that you really understand that in this section there is so much room for drama, because if a leader doesn't want to offer up their resources of their section, that's you as the owner and CEO. You need to deal with that. If a leader loses focus and kind of just goes back to mode of operations that they were doing prior, and doesn't make progress on the defining objectives, you have to deal with that as the leader. There is a lot of room for drama and frustration in this area, because we've determined the clarity, we've determined what's most important, we sat down as a leadership team and decided this, and now it's time for the rubber to meet the road. And if our team is not connected enough to be able to follow up with each other detailed enough and report on a weekly basis on their progress, and when they're not doing very well, be like, yeah, I didn't really move the needle forwards. I kind of let everybody down. I mean, it can get a little messy, but at this point, the other leaders get to step in and say, hey, okay, we see you're overrun. This is heavy. How can we help? And that's the point where all those department hats are off and everybody starts to invest their resources. Like, okay, because this is most important, not one of us gets to be the sacrificial lamb here. We're all either winning together or we're sinking together. So how are we going to drive this forwards, even though that section wasn't able to accomplish their thing? What's going on inside that section? And that's when you dive in deep. It's like, okay, what's happening here? Because this is most important. How are we not accomplishing that? And you get to realign them to that thing and their section to that thing so that you can actually drive forwards. And I know that sounds challenging and hard because it is. It is challenging and hard to constantly go back in and do that and have those conversations. But that's the work of the leader. That's literally the work of as a CEO, as a top executive. Because the more you can connect your team and rally them towards that point that Antic referred, that one most important thing, and make sure all the resources throughout all the sections in your organization coming from all the departments are aligned, moving that objective forwards, because that is the most important thing. You guys have determined it already and you've given it a timeline. Then you will not see the success that you're after if you don't have everyone in alignment pushing forwards. And I know that sounds complicated and challenging and that's because it is. Okay. And it's just the nature of being the leader. You want to be a leader? Nobody told you this is what was required, right? But it is. And so this is what is required. So let's get after it. Now we learned, now we understand. That was Alex Hormozi is famous for saying, like, so you got into this business thing and then you didn't realize it was going to require this much out of you. And then you learned that is what is required. And now you have a choice. Do it or don't do it and just go get a job. And so you get to choose, do it or don't do it and just go do something else. But this is required if you're going to stay in business for the long term. You're like, is that what CEOs, is that what executives really do? Yes, it's what they really do. In addition to all the other stuff that you actually see them do. because this stuff happens in the leadership team, and you and just the meetings that happen weekly, and you rarely ever see that as you're going about your normal operations. Now what? Now what do we do? All right. So since you have this piece of clarity, what's most important right now, the defining objectives and the strategic operating sections. So you have those on a sheet of paper. It's very clear. You have asked the question, who does what, and you've answered the question in the leadership team. Everybody's assigned their responsibilities, and you have assigned who is responsible for moving forward, what section. Now we go to the overarching operating plan, the company operating plan, your operating handbook that you will take with you to every single leadership meeting, that you will always refer back to, and every decision you make will have something to do with what is on this piece of paper. The answers to this sheet that are on this sheet are: why do we exist? Talked about this in another webinar. I give an entire webinar on how to determine how your organization exists. How do we behave? What are our core values, essentially? Talk through this in a completely separate webinar. If you need the answers to that question, go back and watch that video, because you should have a single page that shows how do you behave in your organization and why you exist. It's very clear, very simple. What do we do? What business are we in, essentially? Answering that question. We talked about that. How will we win? In another webinar, I talked about how you will win, creating your strategy for your organization, how you determine how you will win over the next foreseeable future. And there's an entire webinar around that. Yes, I will. Thank you. I'm just answering my team member. She asked me a question. All right. So what is the most important thing we must accomplish right now, and who must do what? We've answered those in this video, and now you have the information that you need. I hope I've tried to put the cookies on the bottom shelf as low as possible so that we could grab them and run forwards. So you should have all of this in a booklet. It should be 3 to 4 pages max, with the answers to these questions, that every time you go to your weekly leadership team meeting, this should be there. You should have every executive, not just you as the leader, by the way, every single executive should have this document with them when they come to the meeting. And when they come to the meeting, it's there at the meeting, and you refer back to that. It's like, okay, who's in charge of this defining objective? Oh, it's Charlie. Hey, so, what's the progress? Give us a progress report. What help do you need? Where are we at? And you get to work through that. How are we working towards? What are we going to measure? And again, it's a marathon. We continue on. So you have all of this stuff. You take it, all of this information, you take it to your leadership meetings, and every time you have to make a decision, so many of your decisions are pre-decided. And this is what's so exciting about business. And this is what's so exciting about the information that's shared in these webinars, is that once you create this type of alignment throughout your organization, you will have so many of the decisions pre-decided. You will give yourselves the boundaries to stay away from things that are going to burn you or cause you to lose focus or cause you to not move the needle. You are going to move through the strategic improvement areas of your organization faster than you ever realized. And you're going to feel momentum and prosperity. You're going to feel peace that, you know what, when I came to work today, we focused on this. This is our major strategic objective right now. And we're actually moving towards it. And that feeling of accomplishment will be the norm for you, because even though the market's going to go up and down, and sometimes your business is going to be flat from one year to the next, you might take a slight dip. That happens. You're going to be okay, because you're like, we are way better than we were before. We're focused on the most important thing, and it's going to move the needle up over the long term. And as you do that again and again and again, I promise you, your business will prosper. You will sleep better at night, and you will have a more fulfilling experience as a leader. And that's ultimately one of the biggest reasons I'm sharing this content with you today. So after this, give each leader a copy, bring it to every single leadership meeting. This is your reference guide to all the decisions you have to make. Many decisions are already made. They're pre-made for you. And this is the ultimate advantage in business, and it gives you the clarity and alignment to stand the test of time. And that's where greatness comes in. That's when you've been in business for 30 or 40 years and it's a multi-million-dollar organization, and you've trained a leader up in the organization, and you've trained the character, and you've trained the disciplines, and you showed them how you do operations, and you showed them how to drive the clarity, and you hand the baton off to the next generation. They charge forwards, and it's up and to the right because you've given them everything necessary to be able to take your organization into the future. And ultimately, that's, I think, what business is all about. So what are we going to talk about in the next webinar? If we've talked about all this and we've answered all the 6 questions to clarity, what else is there to talk about? What is it? Well, I'm going to give you a sneak peek. I'm going to talk about the meeting rhythms in your organization that you must have in your organization. And we're going to talk about what to do in those meetings. Like, just have a meeting, right? Why don't we just have meetings? Yes, but what do you do in a meeting to actually make the meeting effective, useful, and drive to clarity, and make sure that you don't just leave the meeting like, oh my gosh, that was so freaking boring. I don't even know why I'm in these meetings, right? So I'm going to talk about that in the next webinar coming up. So don't miss it. I'm going to share with you every meeting type you should have in your organization and the sequence with which they should be in your organization, as well as what you should do in those meetings. So join me next time, Wednesday at 9:30, Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern, and we're going to be going over what meetings you must have in your organization that give you the best possible chance to win over time. Deeply connected to this content, of course, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video as we continue to go up and to the right, building forwards.